For the past few weeks, I've been seeing a rising number of people that have been throwing some controversial opinions towards Part 6. Some of them go as far as saying Part 6 is bad, which I disagree. I quite like Part 6. In fact, I think Part 6 is really good. That is why I'm making this video.
I still see your shadows in my room. Can't take back the love that I gave you. It's to the point where I love and I hate you, and I cannot change you, so I must replace you.
So straight up, the way I'm gonna make this video is a bit different. I'm gonna talk about Part 6 as a whole in two ways. Why people don't really like Part 6 as much as the rest parts of JoJo. As well, I'm gonna talk why Part 6 is better than people say it is. Starting on point, Part 6 is probably the most different part of JoJo, not in terms of anything visible to the outside perspective of the story, but more in the setting of the part itself. Part 6 resides in the prison for the majority of the part, and differently from everything we have seen so far in the entirety of JoJo. In every part of JoJo so far, we have seen an open adventure. Even in parts where the entire story takes place in a single town, we still have seen characters exploiting that bit of the town and exploring new stuff that we haven't seen. But in a single facility like a prison, it's kinda different than that. A lot of people say that Part 6 is not as good just for that reason, and a lot of people are basically wrong, because that's a very subjective thing to say. Just because something is different doesn't mean it's bad, and Araki's theme as a writer of manga is changing and evolving through it, so I don't blame him or Part 6 for taking a direction it took. For me as an individual who finds fun playing games that are different in games in terms of prison games and that are based in the entire setting of a place itself, I really like the prison setting on Part 6 to a personal level that I will always defend. It's fair to say that Hirohiko Araki experimented with his story and his ability to create manga in every single part of JoJo, and this is visible in comparison to how much the series has changed from early days to now. But Araki takes that to the next level in Part 6 as its own. I honestly will say that he tested out how far can he go at changing things and evolving the rise of Shonen Jump at the time to a point where he knew himself that he was getting into a lot of things, which I respect him for, because these changes that Araki fought at the time on his manga are the reason why many series today are the way they are. One of the most visible changes on the story is the main character of Part 6, Jolyne. There is a female. You might ask, what is the problem with her being a female? Nothing, but at the time when Part 6 was running at early 2000s, having a female character in a Shonen Jump manga was rare to never seen before, and the Part 6 is the most unique manga of its kind. One of the most unique, for sure. Jolyne is an amazing character, and the thing I like about it is that Araki didn't try to force anything on her character, but she was herself, and I love her character for that. She's not a strong female character that is literally a woman acting as an aggressive man, but she's a strong female character that will keep her female attributes and still be badass for that. Just like her father after all, but just in a more complex way. I will actually argue that every one of us can relate at a certain bit with Jolyne herself, because her life was kind of thrown in a bit and she used everything she was in a way to escape from that little aggressive thing that happened to her life, because after all she was living normal till she was accused for being a murderer in a false attempt of basically ruining her life. So you get my point. Something that I personally like and a lot of people seem to dislike is the rest of the main characters in Part 6 that I personally love. I love it myself to a point where some of the characters as Foo Fighters have become some of my favorite characters in the entirety of Part 6 and maybe in JoJo. I guess it's fair to say that people have a certain checklist before reading Part 6, that the part didn't really complete that because it took another different style compared to other parts of JoJo before that. That explains a lot of people complaints. I love Part 6 for what it is, of JoJo part that covers the last arc of the main universe with a beautiful protagonist, an interesting main cast of characters, a good minor villain, and very good minor villains into a best, and an amazing antagonist that I haven't talked about it yet, but just by the sound of it you can already tell that I love Bucci. He's an amazing antagonist, and in overall everything he does throughout makes the story way more enjoyable. Every time he's in the panels makes it to be one of my favorite parts of the series, and his interaction, aka flashbacks, with his young self and Dio are some of the best moments in JoJo and one of the best character interactions I have ever seen. Also, a few things that I love about part 6 that I haven't mentioned yet is the art that isn't really surprising of JoJo. After all, the art is amazing in every part, but I will argue that the art after part 4 and part 5 specifically is where Araki experimented to changing his art, so the style and the fashion, especially in part 5, that was kinda on part 6 by default, is just unique from character to character, that is just incredible. Also, another thing that I like is the stand battles. Believe it or not, I find part 6 to be very bizarre even compared to JoJo standards, and also to have some of the most interesting fights with stands in all of JoJo, and this comes for the simple reason that is the power of the stands itself. I mean, I won't lie, it's a very cool thing seeing an overpowered main character with a godly stand overcoming struggles with his mind and his friends and stuff like that. It makes amazing stories that we have seen so far in JoJo. That is pretty much everything we have seen up to part 6, but it's even cooler than that when a main character that is a stand user of a stand that requires more than just power and punching, but also requires thinking, that makes to be one of the most tactical battles in was stands that we haven't seen or haven't tackled so far in JoJo to this point. So part 6 kinda completes that for me, and I will say that it's just incredible to see.
I have these lucid dreams where I can't move a thing, thinking of you in my bed.
Araki in part 6 at that point had created one of the most influential manga of all time, and he had changed a lot as a writer after all those years of creating manga, and he even took it to the next level in part 6. He felt that he had come to a point when he understood that he had come to that specific point of his creativity that will probably lack in terms of story if he continued that specific storytelling that he used in the first 6 parts, so he used this to go and create the controversial ending of part 6. I will argue is the biggest thing that part 6 is known about, the controversial ending, of course. In his notebooks, he left parts of him explaining part 6 ending and how it came to be that way, and his words, he was just going along with his story that wasn't totally planned at that point. So the controversial ending of part 6 happened just like that, and I am aware it feels a bit rushed, but I personally don't think it was bad. It could have been expanded a bit more, but I won't blame him because what came after part 6 is some other class stuff, so I won't blame anyone for anything. The reset of the universe and the death of everyone from the main cast makes Jolyne and her character to be a tragic one, and one of the best symbolizing ending of part that symbolizes back to part 1 the same way that it ended in part 1 and at part 6, so I will have to say that I love that. Also, I have probably some criticism that I can give towards part 6, but I will never say it's a bad part because it's just amazing. I just wanted to share my thoughts on this massive of a part that is Stone Ocean and the character greatness of Jolyne Cujoh, that even if it's not your favorite part, you should probably respect of. Thank you for watching this video. I had a lot of fun creating my thoughts towards part 6 as a whole because I love this part from the bottom of my heart, and seeing other people call it bad makes me unhappy to hear that, so I thought I'd share this thing called opinion that is pretty rare and everything you say is controversial nowadays, but to say that part 6 is bad is also kinda sad to hear, so I will say that part 6 is really good and it deserves more than it gets. I recommend everyone that has already read part 6 to give it a reread because I will say that it probably will clear some stuff up and it will make you see Stone Ocean from a different view and probably enjoy it from a different perspective and probably give it more respect than you already do. Thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed, give it a like. Also make sure to subscribe to the channel. If you're new around here, you will see uploads in your subscription box if you turn notifications on. Also make sure to check my socials in the link in the descriptions. Have a nice rest of the day. Bye.
We go back, we relax, hentai in the back.